Sweet Home Season 2 is the second season of the action horror series based on a manhwa. Now, seasons 2 and 3 were filmed back to back, and a lot of people have been waiting a long time for these seasons. They both got released. The second season at the end of 2024. No, end of 2023, and then 2024 summer for the third season. However, the first season debuted in 2020. I didn't watch this series until about 2 years later, but this one is a little bit different beast from the first season. The first season was more of a survival sort of atmospheric, trapped in a building, anyone could turn into a monster at any time sort of feeling. The second season, however, is a lot different because we're following the same survivors from the first season. However, they get split up and they're doing different paths and different things. And the first 3 episodes are like their own arc. It's a chaotic sort of mix of action and disaster film. So you really leave out the horror. And we're introducing so many new characters. There's like soldier characters, government characters, other survivors, the same survivors from the first season, advancements of characters from the first season as well. So the first 3 episodes are sort of arc, sort of introducing this sort of new way of life of being in this sort of shelter camp. However, there's a time skip and it's really jarring. Stuff happens in between the time skip, but you don't get to see it. People reference it in the show and it's a little bit weird, but then they introduce all these new characters again. And they're basically staying at a stadium. All the large group of survivors are in a stadium. However, you lose that intimacy of the different characters. When you're in an apartment building, there could be apartments hidden with monsters, weird people, other survivors, different threats. And when you're in the stadium, everyone's sort of out in the open. So it's kind of like everyone's just sort of milling around. It's a lot of filler, it feels like, in this season. I haven't caught up with Stranger Things, but my friend, he watched the 4th season. He didn't like it because they introduced like so many new characters, like 7 or 8, and then they also, each episode's about an hour and a half. So the same thing kind of happens with Sweet Home. Every episode's about a little over an hour. They introduce a lot of new characters, but they don't do a lot with them. They're sort of doing small objectives, and whenever you get monster action, it's just a frenetic sort of shootout with the Crow Platoon shooting at a monster. The monsters don't feel ominous anymore. They're maybe it's because the entire series is done in daylight outside, but that sort of adds to the lack of tension because they can just drive away. When you're in an apartment building stuck with a monster, you really just can't run away. So I feel some of the monsters introduced in season 2 are just okay. There's like a chameleon, like lizard one with a big tongue. There's some rock creatures. And the only episode that I really enjoyed was the last episode. Episode 8 introduces all this new stuff. They throw it at you, cliffhanger ending. Doesn't give you a lot of payoff, introduces new threats. However, the rest of the season is just sort of milling about. A lot of characters just sort of complaining. Small goals, everyone's sort of disjointed and doing their own thing. And some of the events that happen aren't really fully explained either, like one of the fan favorites, something happens to her, but they don't really explain what happened to her. It sort of just happens. And you can have theories, but it's kind of weird how it leaves you in the open like that. But overall, I feel Sweet Home Season 2 is a step down from the first season, mainly because it feels more like an action disaster survival series rather than a horror. The creatures aren't really, monsters aren't really scary. I felt myself not having a lot of goosebumps to the last episode. And, you know, they introduced some new characters and new dynamics, but overall, it's just okay. I'll probably tune in for the 3rd season, but I feel season 2 was definitely a step down. Instead of, you know, enjoying every episode being an hour, I was like, come on, hurry up, move on, instead of that. Also, there was another weird musical cue. They don't use that same song from the first season, but they have this really cloying, emotional song near the end, and sometimes the music choices are really awkward. But overall, I'll definitely still check out the 3rd season. Season 2 is a bit of a misstep, but you know, we'll see how long this series will last. So those are my thoughts on Sweet Home Season 2.